Welcome to this week's SIIA Tech Chats. Joining me today is Suzanne Ryan, VP of Marketing at Exago. Exago provides embedded business intelligence for software companies. Suzanne, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Rihanna. Thanks for having me.
So your audience is almost exclusively a SaaS audience, and the SaaS market, as we all know, is highly competitive. How can good BI tools help SaaS companies differentiate themselves?
Good question. So what we're seeing is including embedded analytics in your SaaS application, it's no longer just a nice to have differentiator. It's really become a requirement, and customers comparing solutions, they get more discerning by the minute. So they're not going to be satisfied with an embedded dashboard just because it's nice looking or slick looking. There really has to be both, like the steak and the sizzle, so to speak. Our SaaS clients that have the most success positioning embedded analytics as a differentiator in their products, they're the ones that understand the actual day-to-day workflows of their users, and they make that user experience the primary driver of their analytics strategy. So people evaluating SaaS solutions, they'll come out and look at a solution and they know what their users are capable of, and they'll know right away when they're looking at the BI module if that part of it is going to create more challenges and frustration for their users, or if it's really going to add legitimate value through, say, improved operational efficiency or greater transparency. So our SaaS clients, they'll tailor the analytics experience to fit the needs of each type of user among their client companies. And they're able to demonstrate that analytics will actually be helpful instead of causing frustration. So in the Exago solution, what that means is they'll enable the appropriate feature set and environment for each user. So a power user shouldn't come in and be limited by just looking at canned reports and dashboards that they can only interact with. They should really be able to have a robust feature set that lets them do whatever they're capable of. And on the other end of the spectrum, more casual users shouldn't be overwhelmed by a lot of bells and whistles that they're never going to use, and that will just really cause them to become overwhelmed and abandon the solution. So our clients that demonstrate that their users are going to be accommodated where they actually are rather than being expected to develop a whole new set of skills, they're the ones that are really able to set themselves apart with their BI offering. And another thing I would say that we've just recently been seeing more of is it's a new trend where our customers are actually using all of the data they accumulate from all of their different customers to sort of position themselves as macro-level advisors in their specific vertical. They'll develop cross-customer benchmarks, and it can be a big added value and a differentiator to be able to say, something like 90% of companies like yours are selling more widgets through Facebook than through Twitter or something of that sort. So that's another new way that customers are using their data from their clients to differentiate with their analytics solution.
When evaluating BI tools, though, what key things or questions companies need to be asking when looking at which BI tool is going to meet that need customer?
Right. So the internet is, overflowing with, punch lists and, calculators to figure out how to, matrices to figure that out. But I have one main answer to that, and that would be to say, think about what your product roadmap looked like 5 years or even 1 year ago, and recognize how much it's changed and how adaptable and agile you've had to be to respond to your market. So you'll want a BI solution that, especially an embedded BI solution, that allows for that continued flexibility as you grow so that you can modify and extend the solution to meet your needs, even if you don't even know what they're going to be yet. So what that typically means in an embedded BI solution, or really in any third-party solution that a SaaS company might be considering embedding, is an open API that's very well designed to allow your developers to customize and extend the third-party application into your own host application without having to rely on the vendor themselves to develop it for you. So you'll want to be able to modify the application to suit your unique needs rather than you having to fit around the application you're embedding. And so how do you determine that? How do you shop for a good API? The best way to do it is to what we recommend is that our prospects, we invite them to bring their most diabolical case to the evaluation and test the limits of our solution. And we recommend that you do that with any solution you're evaluating. Think of some oddball specific to your vertical, to your application need that you might have, and try to do it within reason in the evaluation. And that will give you an idea of the limits and tolerance and flexibility of the API and some sense of whether you'll be able to adapt as your needs change, because we all know they will change. And when we invite prospects to do that, we do it on the back end with the API and the technical integration portions of the evaluation, but also on the front end, we ask them to bring a few of their most complex and difficult reports and see if we can, knock those out during the evaluation. And the added benefit of that is that you're building a partnership during the evaluation, so you'll really get a sense of how responsive the vendor is, what is their support team like to work with, and if you do decide to purchase and move ahead, you already have a good mutual understanding of the technical needs and the environment and the goals that you have. Like when we finally, sign with a customer, we already know what they're trying to accomplish, and we already are in pretty deep and understand what their environment is. So that's what I would recommend is kick the tires, but not on the vendor's terms. Bring your own terms and kick the tires that way. So that's what I would say.
I think that's great advice. Now, the adoption of embedded BI is certainly on the rise, but I think it still has a ways to go. What do you think is holding some companies back? Because if there's a clear benefit out there, right?
Absolutely, yes. As I said earlier, the benefit, I think, is so clear that, I'm not going to say BI or analytics is a commodity yet. It's not quite to that point, but it is definitely a requirement in SaaS applications. By the time a SaaS company comes to us looking for a solution, they already know that they have a problem, and they've usually known for some time that they have a problem. So the reason they typically haven't come sooner, the biggest impediment to adoption, to our clients adopting a BI solution and embedding it, is always a lack of dedicated resources internally at our prospect companies. They lack the resources to do an in-depth proof of concept, and then they're overwhelmed by the prospect of implementing a new solution and embedding it and go-to-market and strategy and all of that. The typical SaaS application development team is overtaxed just keeping up with maintaining and enhancing their own solution, much less embedding a third-party one and trying to understand that. So for that reason, I think you really want to work with solution providers who have taken all of the knowledge they've gained from doing countless evaluations with other SaaS companies, and they've distilled that knowledge into an evaluation process that covers all of the bases and gets all of your questions addressed in the most timely and efficient way possible. So you want to work with a BI partner who's going to take on as much of the heavy lifting as they can. And I would say, too, when you're evaluating a solution, features are important, but features can be added and they may or may not get adopted. The most important thing is the partnership. The partnership that you build with your vendor, you want them to want you to succeed as much as you do. And I think if you get that sense when you talk to a company, it's going to help you adopt a lot more easily. You're going to be able to, it's going to take a lot of the perceived stress of adopting a new solution out of the equation. You know that they'll be there for you. So that is what I would say is what's holding companies back the most is the perceived lack of resources. So the solution for that is to find a company that will bring their own resources to bear on the problem and help you through it. One other thing that we've seen too is failed adoptions. We get companies come to us who are just frankly gun shy. I have a lot of empathy for them. They've invested many development hours and cold hard cash into trying to get an embedded BI solution to market in their product, and it's failed. So that is sometimes an impediment to trying again. It's a terrible thing when that happens. And so again, I would say, make sure you kick those tires during the evaluation. Get a solution that's going to adapt to your environment rather than you having to accommodate it. So that's how I would answer that.
Thanks, Suzanne. Now, before I let you go, we've talked a bit about how competitive the SaaS market is, and I'm going to ask you to put your marketing hat on. What advice would you give entrepreneurs who are launching a new SaaS company, and how to get them out there and differentiate themselves?
Right. So I actually have nothing new to add to this dialogue because most of the really helpful things about this that have ever been said were said probably in the 1950s by your old Mad Men style advertising people. And the few that I live by, the main one is no one was ever mystified into buying anything. So I would say, especially if you're a new solution, it's fun to be clever and to have some kind of personality, but I would steer a little bit away from branding and more towards marketing and that more towards product marketing in the beginning so that within 2 seconds, somebody looking at a piece of your collateral, an email, or your website should know right away what exactly you do and who for and what the value is of it. Particularly in BI, you look and, everybody has pie charts, everybody says embedded, everybody says the same things to the point where the terms themselves lose value. So you can never go wrong by erring on the side of clarity and specificity in the beginning, in my opinion. And another old thing that, an old ad guy said, I wish I could remember who it was, but, don't tell me about your grass seed, tell me about my lawn. So a lot of new entrepreneurs are very excited about their new technology and their new solutions, so they talk about it. They talk about their solution rather than getting into the mind and having empathy for their audience. What is their audience's pain? And how does this solution specifically solve for it? That's your differentiator. That's who you are. And nobody really wants to hear a punch list of the details about how you arrived at that, or they only want to hear your specific differences as it relates to their specific needs. So that would be my advice: is don't do too much clever branding at first, but stick more to clarity. So I don't think you can go wrong there.
And I think that's advice. Thank you so much for your time and insights today. For more information on Exago and SIIA, you can visit our website, and we will see you next week for SIIA Tech Chat.